will you join me on a lovely, still frosty and slushy, icy day down in the country back roads? Today, oh my god, it's not like this back where I was. Okay, let's just get out of this ice and then we can get on with the video, because that title, I do realise, is going to get a lot of people answering before watching. So please do bear with me and watch the video and try and understand what I'm trying to say here. Although the question is the UK motorcycle industry going to crash? And I want to explain my thinking behind this, because it's not something that I've just come up with over the past 5 minutes. It's something I've noticed for years. If you go to a local bike spot, you're going to notice an average age amongst your fellow bikers. And yeah, you're going to have some young people there, you're going to have some old people there, but the average is grey-haired. Now, it is different in different places, like, you know, in certain locations the grey-hairedness really comes through, and you don't necessarily see so many 16, 17-year-olds at the local bike spots, because most of you, and I was the same, felt a bit fearful going to a bike spot with me old plates on, because I thought, you know, oh well, they're going to be like, I'm not a proper biker, and they're going to give me jip and they're going to pick on me. No, the reality is they won't. Some places they will. Most likely they'll just ignore you. And I still went to these bike spots, but I couldn't help but notice how few young people were there. Now, when you think of a company like Lexmoto, or one of the other Chinese bike manufacturers, you might be thinking their main customer basis will be 16, 17-year-olds, something like that, because, you know, they make 125s, they're cheap. It's people who want to just get on the road that are going to them. But that isn't actually true. I was talking to Lexmoto about this. Basically, their customer basis of 65 and over, sorry, I'm being blinded here, is considerably larger than their 16 to 17-year-olds. More people in their 60s are buying these bikes than people in their early teens. Now, as you may know, I've made many videos trying to help people pass their tests and get into biking, because I personally absolutely love it. And beyond the universal thing of money, the one thing that seems to stop a lot of people is fear of riding, fear of failure, fear of fear. Basically, most people's fears are fear of fear. They get fearful for doing something, so they're fearful of it, and then they don't do it. That's why I made the like tips for new riders playlist with all those videos that have helped hundreds of people get onto two wheels. It's because I realised many years ago, other than just I want to help people, I love bikes. I want the industry in this country to continue, and for it to continue, it needs new blood. There's too many old people in it. There isn't enough young blood in it. So what's going to happen at some point in the future is you're going to have that band of, you know, getting older bikers, when they decide, I'm no longer going to ride a bike, I'm getting too old, or something like that. The industry's arse is going to just fall out, because that is, you know, they're older, they've got money. Good to see three lads on scooters up here. These people have got money to buy it, and for most people, to my understanding, as people tell me, most people, their motorcycle is a toy, it's for fun, not every day for commuting. So you can see what I'm saying here, with a very large amount of older riders currently supporting the UK motorcycle market. When they move away from bikes, unless there is a strong drive of new people into the bike industry, into riding bikes, into buying equipment, into buying motorcycles, into using the companies that are there that support motorcyclists in this country, without that happening, the industry can only fall, and then things will not be as good for the remaining bikers. You know, there'll be less options, less choice, and stuff like that. Things might become more expensive. Now, this is one of the reasons why I've always been a strong proponent of companies like Lexmoto, because they lowered the bar a lot. Because if you ask a lot of younger guys or girls, why aren't you riding? As I say, I've asked my followers this. Other than fear, which is like the second one, the number one thing I think is money. It's universal, it's ubiquitous, it affects all. Even though riding a bike is cheaper than a car by a long way, it would make a lot of sense for both the UK and individuals to ride bikes. It is cheaper, and the statistics have been done, a study has been done, and they suggest that if one in... Whoa! Okay, that was pure ice and the back end slid on it, I didn't even know. What if 1 in 5 UK drivers got a bike, it would practically solve our traffic problem. Oh, are they going to do it? They're thinking about it. Cheers, dude. And maybe there's many other factors, like the younger generations just aren't interested in motorcycles. Maybe they perceive motorcycles to be idiotic, stupid, no fun. Maybe it doesn't switch things for them. You know, I am a kid of the 90s. I was born in the 80s, but I'm really a kid of the 90s. And things, you know, back then we were all into like F1 and superbikes, and everything was so raw and real, and there's pheasants just everywhere. Now for me, when I got into biking, I didn't have a lot of money to spend, and if I had to fork out, you know, £4 or £5 for a 125, it would never have happened. It never would have done it. But I didn't. I had to find 1,400 quid, and it got me on the road. And yeah, okay, back in those days, and even today, you have some issues with the Chinese bikes, far worse than the past. That bar for entry is so low that it allows people who may have never had the opportunity to ride and may have never got a bike a first footstep through the door. This isn't a video about defending Chinese bikes, it's just literally saying their prices are lower, it lowers the bar of entry. It's a good thing for the industry. It may not be good for individual brands that are selling much more expensive 125s, but I'm sure they're still getting their market, because you've still got people who don't trust the Chinese brands, or don't want to go down that road, or don't see the risk versus reward thing as worth it. Which is fine, as I've said, but if you haven't got that much money to get into biking, it's just not going to happen. So that's one of the reasons that I review the bikes that I do, and I take the perspective that I do, which is that, yeah, okay, I'm not saying they're the best thing ever. What I am saying is that it may be the only bike some people can afford if they want to get something new with a warranty, and they know that it's not being driven into the ground by a 17-year-old who didn't understand that chain adjustments and oil changes were even a thing. Now that's just people getting into biking, as I say. Now I am of the belief that if you live in a local area, you work in a local area, and you don't need to go on motorways a lot or dual carriageways for extended periods of time, you can survive on a 125 absolutely no problem. I did it for 7 years, but now I have larger bikes. Even though I still absolutely love the 125s, I still have the larger bikes because I kind of need them to get places. It isn't feasible to go a long distance on a motorway where the average speed of people on that road is 85 mile an hour safely. You know, you can, but you have to keep it. I like having big bikes. It's fun. It's good to have. Now, for a lot of young riders, even though I am of the opinion, which is I do understand why there are more restrictions on the licenses than there used to be. Now, I've done videos on all of these aspects. If you want to argue any one point, I've probably got a video you can go and see my point of view on it. I should correct that. I'm not arguing, I'm discussing. I don't say that I'm right, this is just my opinion. This is what I've seen from my perspective, from what I've done over the years. And I understand that you might say that any 17-year-old can go and get a Lamborghini tomorrow and drive that, and all you can get at 17 is a 125. I understand what you're saying. Why have I come down the icy roads again? Such an idiot. I understand what you're saying. I understand the point of view, and it is frustrating. And when you think about how that might be limiting how many people can get into biking, because it's risen the bar price by quite a lot. If they want to go for a full-size bike, you can still go for your A2 and have it. As I've said, I have a video on that. Is the A2 enough? Yes, it is. It is enough, but it's not everything. And obviously, you are maybe annoyed that you've passed the test, which theoretically is exactly the same as the full test. And why aren't you allowed to have something that's more powerful? Why aren't you trusted at 19 to know what you're doing? I think most 30-year-olds would agree that at 19 they weren't trustworthy with a 200 brake horsepower super sport. And because of this, people are of the opinion that the government don't want people to ride bikes. And I think I may be changing my viewpoint on that a little bit. I think having spoken to some people and asked them some questions like, do you honestly think the government don't want people to ride bikes? And he's like, no, I don't think they do. Now, I used to be of the opinion that the reasons the rules changes were purely for safety. And I have to say, I don't think it was that anymore. I do think there is an amount, a limiting that they do want to make it harder for people to get into motorcycles. I don't think the UK government wants us to ride bikes, which, as I say, is kind of stupid, because yes, okay, the fatalities connected to motorcycles are far higher, but it might very well be the saving grace of our, struggling road network. And this is where you start thinking to yourself, maybe the old day rules of allowing 17-year-olds on 250s, like, the Vendetta I've been recently reviewing, it's not that much different from a 125, and even if it, I've ridden 250s by Suzuki with like 24 brake horsepower, and you're like, yeah, this isn't gonna scare anyone to death. Yeah, it's a little bit quicker than a 125, but it's more of an acceptable, usable bottom range. And I have been in the past like, it's just do your licence, it's not that much of a big deal. I'm starting to see it more, I'm starting to understand, and that could be one of the things that's killing the motorcycle industry. It's stopping new people coming in. Now you can see who the big manufacturers are trying to attract by looking at their advertising, looking at their marketing. They're not marketing and advertising the little bikes normally, they're advertising the big ones, the big flagships. So then you think to yourself, well, do these companies not realise this is happening? Why are they not proactively trying to get new people in? Why are they not offering them things like maybe free insurance in the first year, or trying to really look after the new riders, or reduce the cost of 125s? The reason why they're not doing this is because, frankly, they don't care. What are motorcycles to each of these companies? Is it all they make? No. Look at Yamaha. Yamaha has got a multitude of industries that it makes things in. Motorcycles is just a thing. Look at Honda. They make everything from plane engines to boat engines, all sorts. The bike thing for them, again, is a small thing. And to my understanding, even Triumph is a small subsidiary of a much larger company that doesn't need it. It's just a thing that they continue to do. And this comes down to it being an international market, and the UK being such a small contributor. So once you take into consideration all of these factors, and you realise that it seems like the companies themselves don't even want to try and save the industry, try and bring new blood in, you can't help but think, it is going to crash. It's going to change dramatically in the future. Things will be very different. I mean, maybe it will be beneficial to companies like Lexmoto, because as things get more expensive with the bigger companies, or as less people buy them in here, there's not so much, it's not worth them doing it as much. That might be where the Chinese companies are going to take over. Also, the vast improvements that they've made over the years, it's not saying they're the best, because they cost half as much as what people consider the best. And that is not to say that the best don't go wrong, because they bloody well do. I'd love to know what your thoughts on this are. As I say, this is just a discussion, this is information that I've sort of gleaned over the years from talking to people and reading things and paying attention to what's going on. And then all of that kind of being cross-referenced with each other until the point you look at it like I have and been like, well, I don't see our way out of this unless a lot of new people start coming in. Okay, well, I'm going to end this video here because you can see I have a problem. Let me know what you think on this subject. Subscribe, like. Huge thanks to my Patreon supporters. It looks like I'm going to need it this month. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.